Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, all praises honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Dash. Double honor to the apostles and elders, a great millstone and citation to the men and brethren in this work. In truth and in sincerity, because the four constant pan would risk in their lives to do so. We are few members from James Trinidad camp here to edify the elected body of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, keeping in the spirit and is doing this work. All right, so the title today is Who Are the Nations Today? Basically, is the Genesis, sorry, the breakdown of nations. There are 18 nations on the planet. Uh, how do we know that it stemmed from the book of Genesis, better known as Barafiat? I think that's how you pronounce it, right, Caleb? In the
Kanta
headings.
Shiat
Uh,
Ba Ra'ash Yat heading or beginning in
can.
the heading.
All right, so we're just gonna read Genesis chapter 10, as you see in the. I don't know if they call it the foreground or on the side. On the side, yeah. Also being presented is right. That's probably a little better. Is the positions of the nations where they would dwell. All right, and then we could probably make some little one or two little corrections in between because they would have the original landings where they would have disposed to after the flood, and then through the process of time and different conquests, we would have had some of the nations being conquered and moving out of the lands. Right, so we
Yeah.
pray to be edifying. All praises honor and glory to Yahweh Hashem Yahshua as we proceed. So we're gonna start with Genesis chapter 10 and verse 1. Who gonna read?
I will read. You hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, this is Genesis chapter 10, and starting at verses 1. It says, Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were the sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Media, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshech, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Rephath, and Togoma, and the son Salakia.
Nobody said anything. Go ahead. I don't
Oh,
think
oh,
so.
yeah, let's get our feedback. So I thought somebody was about to say something. It says, And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Rephath, and Togoma, and the sons of Javan, Elshaha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dumanium. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families and their nations. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Sheba, Havilah, and Sabata, and Ramah, and Sabataka. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan, and Cush, Salah. Right. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Sheba, and Havilah, and Sabata, and Ramah, and Sabataka. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begot Nimrod. He became to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord Yahweh. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and he reached and Akkad, and Calna in the land of Sinai. Out
All right.
of that
All right. Slow down. So I want to um, I want to try to give the biblical the new names after conquest, I guess. Right, the new names. I will go back up to the generations of Japhet. Right, so Japhet are known as Goma today. Sorry, Japhet. Sorry, Japhet. The sons of Japhet are Goma. Goma is known as France today. So we're gonna we're taking a look on the map here. I don't know if you can see the map clearly. I'm gonna try to see if right. So see on the map, if you understand the map, right? This part in red here is where Japheth's descendants are from. Alright, or would have settled post flood, post diluvian, as Calab would say. Right, and you see France, you see the area of France here, right? This was Japhetic, right. Here's where Homer would have dwelt, right? We're seeing sorry, between Turkey, the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. I don't know if you see Black Sea, where the man is standing up on top, where Japhet, the progenitor itself, their representation. By the way, all the nations were predominantly dark skinned post flood, right? There's Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, this area here between Turkey and Iran, up north, right? This is where Magog dwell, right? Or Gog dwell. Son of Magog means of Gog, right? You see Greece, here's where Javan dwell, right? Javan dwell here. You see Tarshish, remember Paul went to Tarshish?
Come.
Right, here's Spain. Tarshish is Spain. Right, Kittim. Right, you see Kittim is kind of like sorry, Italy is Kittim, right? And there are some islands around. When you read high up high up, it says what? High up, or was it lower down? They talk about the islands. Talk about some of the islands. Shemham, Japheth, sons. Alright, verse 5. But by these the eyes of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after their tongues, after their families and their nations, right? See some of the islands here is in around Italy and Greece. You have islands here, you have Cyprus and all these islands here, right? Malta and whatnot. You have Ashkenaz, they were Germany, right? They were Germany. And then you have the Medes and the Persians. Right, that's Madai.
So, Kittim.
Kittim have Italy.
Cyprus, right?
Cyprus. So Cyprus is one of the islands here, around in here. Right. So if you want, I can pull up another map. All right. Let me see if I can get it on this one. Cecilia. Well, another biblical map. It's showing here. It's closer to Syria. On this map here, it's showing it closer to Syria here. It's an island. Right? I don't know if you've seen that. You seen that?
This one. Khan. Cyprus, Khan.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look it up, you see that Cyprus, or Kittim, sorry, goes into Cyprus today.
Okay.
I think even the Apostle Tahar brought that out when I'm going into First Maccabees 1.
Okay.
Where Alexander the Great it mentions that he came from Kittim. That's First Maccabees 1 and verses 1 it says, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, and the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius king of the Persians, and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece, right? And that is Esau basically coming up into power, into rulership. And there is history, as in pertaining to books, even so, like entitled one entitled from Macedonia to Greece, where it was mentioned that Philip, Alexander's father, Philip II of Macedon, he actually fought vigorously for that title, something along that line. The book says, right? I did a lesson on it a little while back, right? But
Mhm.
it's either going into what we always say, they are culture vultures, or as Micah says, Micah chapter 2, they covered fields and take them by force and by violence. So all the different regions there where Japheth were dwelling, the Edomites, they left from um, lands like Kittim and stuff, and they went in and they conquered where the Japhetic people were, right? Under the third beast, right, which is known as the Grecian Empire. And from thence they began to conquer the entire known world. So a lot of the different nations that they scattered due to the conquering of Esau Edom, or the violent theft of Esau Edom, just like our homeland today. The part that you see a lot is the Shem there. The Shemite lands does not belong to Esau Edom. But Esau Edom today, he wants to have control of all the land given to Shem. He was only given a portion. Esau was given Mount Seir. The children of Israel was given that special pit, as the scripture speaks of it, one pit. We were given that, but Esau came as he does best, like he did to Japheth. He came and he conquered our lands. You understand? Conquered our lands, named it after themselves, right? And they use great violence to do so. That's why scripture says the kingdom has to be translated now because of injuries and riches. Riches gotten by deceit. Riches is not just cash. It's about time, our people elevate from that mindset of riches being cash. Riches is resources, the land, things that you have of some form of great resource, right? And benefit, like silver and gold, oil. That is true riches. And the lands, especially that has different riches, minerals, especially when Esau came out of them caves, right? When he came out of the bottomless pit, as the scripture says, came out of Europe, where Europe has nothing in minerals, nothing in, you know, um, in produce, like the other lands would have. Esau went and started conquering lands that had a lot of minerals,
Natural
oil,
resources.
or resources. So the Esau has been a conqueror of these different nations. So the nations that they scattered, having been forced out, right? And it was prophesied. So the Japhetic people would originally go back to the Polynesian people,
Uh,
Samoans, right? But Esau took over their regions. You understand? And that's why in prophecy it highlights Esau Edom as being Magog, and also highlights him as being they call him the Medes. You understand, the Medes, because when you look at the region, because the Medes were actually Japhetic, right? The word Mede, if I could bring this precept out, I'm not saying a lot. So let me just connect the dots through these precepts here. This is Genesis 10, right? Genesis 10 and verses 2. It said the sons of Japheth, which your brother would have read, Gomer and Magog and Madai. So you're going to map geographically like we're going on here now. You would see that Magog, biblically, the biblical location was exactly where Russia is today, right? Ra'asha, which is Ezekiel 38 prophecy, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, which is not speaking about the Japhetic people. The Japhetic people have been conquered by the Edomite people, a Shemite people, right? But unrighteous Shemite people conquered the Japhetic lands, right? So they come up under the title of Medes because the word Madai or Madai is one of the sons of Japheth, in which the Medes got their title from. That's where you get the word Medes from, or the Median people from that descendant of Japheth named Madai, right? Even Javan goes back to the Hebrew Yawan, sorry, which goes into Greece, right? So we
Yeah.
see where what Esau did to the Japhetic people, taking on their titles. And when the scripture talks about the Grecians in Joel 3, it's not talking about Japheth. Although it will say Yawan, it's talking about those that are now
Dwelling.
today or in the
Yeah.
spirit of, or well, pretending, I should say, as in having stolen those people's lands. You understand? And that's why too you have a doctrine connected with that Japheth is the white man. Japheth is the white man. And that's because of foolishness and a lack of following the details of the scriptures. You know, Esau conquered these people. He forced them out, and even the history, the secular history is there. As I said, Maccabees, it proves that the Edomites, which were called Macedonians, which goes back to the Amalekite line of Esau Edom, because Agag was called a Macedonian, right? But they were actually Edomites as a biblical identity, and they conquered the regions where the Japhetic people were.
Example right here. This is where did Alexander the Great conquer, and it's the same region. This was the known world at the time. See, the Japhetic people dwell all up here,
That's right.
right? He also did conquer coming down into the land of Shem and the land of Ham.
Yeah, yeah.
So he conquered the known world back then, right?
And you
Right.
notice that when they conquered the known world, what the Lord did, especially pertaining to our portion, which was Syria. Correct? We dwell. That's why I go back to the scripture that says our father was a Syrian, because we were
Mhm.
dwelling in that region. That region was given to the Shemitic people, or the sons of God. And when Esau conquered the known world, well, the monument king, he died. That faggot, Alexander the Great freak, right? He died, and then generals came up after him, and what the Lord caused them to do, war against
Right.
each other.
Water,
But
yeah.
so it's as they touch, you can clearly see as they touch the Lord's inheritance, the Lord stirs up conflicts amongst them. Satan is divided against Satan because you're touching where you're not supposed to touch. And that dividing against yourself ultimately leads to a fall of your empire. And this is what's happening all over again, because we have rats in our land, right? Through World War One and World War Two, they gradualistically snuck their way into our land, and now today they're using violence to try to keep it and to try to spread their wings, because the Arabs up in there with them. You understand? But the Lord ultimately is going to cause the Russians to spread their wings, right? So you're going to spread your wings from a different angle, and that spreading of your wings is going to be a rivalry, because what the scripture says in Revelation 20, and if Kwana you can bring that up, because Revelation 20 and 8, because there's prophecy concerning
Nah,
the
I got it here for you.
spreading yourself. Yeah.
Zalak, yeah. I didn't hear you clearly because right now the rain don't pouring
Oh,
by me hard.
I thought it was in the shower. Yeah, I say how you can do the video in the shower.
The rain falling real hard here right now. Let's wait one second. I'm gonna get a headset. I hardly
Yeah.
hearing how the rain falling so hard. If
Done.
somebody want to read the piece about it.
Yeah. This is Revelation 20.
Yeah, Carl.
Salak, yeah, you know I was reading it all the time, Salak.
He was on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, I now realize that, Salak. There's Revelation 20. I want to read from 7,
Yes, do that. I was not going to say that. So what?
right? And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to the battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea.
Right, so let's break that up and break it down ultimately. Right, it says, and shall go out to deceive the nations. Who's going to do that? Satan. Right, and now this is not talking about the spiritual entity Satan. This Satan here, as the word means adversary, Shatan, is talking about the main adversary of the children of Israel here on the earth, right? Satan, they are called, right? As Thessalonians says, even him who's coming is after the working of Satan. And Apostle Paul, and he was talking about the Romans. They had a working that was as the working of Satan. They are the ones that the scripture identifies to be in Satan. And flowing from the time of Apostle Paul under the Roman Empire, what happened to the Edomites is that they fell from rulership. Their last reign in the Roman Empire was actually what you would call the Flavian dynasty. And after the Flavian dynasty, the rule of Domitian Caesar, you had the year of the 5 good emperors. You had 5 good emperors, not the year. You had the 5 good emperors beginning at Nerva, Hadrian, Trajan, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. You had these jakes, they were Israelites that came up into rulership, right? They started ruling, they took over the Roman Empire. That was a wound to their legacy because another people came up amongst their empire and started ruling. We had power. That's why in certain movies where they did with Gladiator 2, they showed you Macrinus as who are Jake. They had what's his name? Denzel Washington played the role of a black man being high up in position who ruled for a year, and they go into the history. Right, so they knew that so-called blacks came up into rulership during the Roman Empire. Another one being Septimius Severus, and then you had Septimius Severus's sons, who in the movie Gladiator, Septimius Severus, tell you Septimius Severus was a black man. They say from Africa, right? He has his roots in Africa, and he came and he ruled. Jake came up into rulership, and his sons in the Gladiator too. They whitewashed them, right? The guys whitewashed his sons in the movie, so they give you. He's ain't gonna give you whole truth. He'll give you part of the truth, little nuggets and there, but it's up to you to know through the guidance of the Rokako Dash, which the prophets are sent to the teachers that we go to go into history, as it's been always taught by the apostle Elataha, mainly, going into the different Caesars, because there's men still stuck on Septimius Severus being the first black Israelite ruler in Rome, but that is not true. They had Nerva, right? And then Jakes ultimately took over Europe. They took over the known world for 1,000 years under what you call the Byzantine Empire.
Right.
So was forced out of rulership. We took over, but then it had prophecy to be fulfilled, like we just read there. The brother just read it. Satan must be loosed. So the Lord caused certain things to happen in the world. It had the Black Plague, the bubonic plague that killed out a lot of Jakes, giving them now the opportunity to rise up into rulership. And what they did, as they came into power, they gathered up their sword, their blessing, and ultimately started speaking their lies. You have 1492 Cristobal Colon coming to this side of the world to pursue the Israelites, the northern kingdom of Israel. So they started conquering, and today we see what they have done with their conquering. They have re-established that Roman image in the earth. That's what they have done. That fourth beast now became revived, and they deceived the nations, not just into believing that they are the righteous people and the people of the Lord, but they deceive the nations even to believing that those lands that they now occupy are originally theirs. That is what they deceive the nations to believe in. They whitewash everything and they change everything. As scripture says, they move the ancient landmarks, which is a sin, right? They commit abominations by what they do. So the Lord ultimately judge them, and that's what it's saying here in verses 8. Gog and Magog to gather them together to the battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. So the Lord going to stir up a great battle. Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38, that prophecy is going to happen before the Lord Yahweh Shai returns. Verse 8, verse 9, you could read verse 9, Papa Kusha. And then that is it.
So I'm gonna get it back here.
Because it said that what it said concerning Esau.
You want to read it back? Read it back, was it?
No, read verse 9. It's the precept that we was reading before that we went into this Revelation 20.
This is Revelation 20 and 9. It says, and they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about and the beloved city, and fire came down from Yahweh out of heaven and devoured them.
Yeah, that's it. That's the end result. Nuclear missiles will be dropped on our land, right? To force these devils out violently, right? Through death. It's going to be a clean sweep because they took what is not theirs, and the Lord is going to cause their own to come up against them. That is the Gog and Magog coming up and compassing the camp of the saints. They're going to enter into Israel, invade that land, right? As I said, they come upon the breadth of the earth with their forces, right? And the Lord ultimately is going to cause them to go into a nuclear warfare.
So,
So that's where you get for stealing land. So you say in the house of the thief. So like, you have more?
Me?
And I had a quick one for you because I had the precept whole and so happened you quote the precept and all too because I was meditating on how I was going into Japheth and the landmass where he was dwelling. I even looked him up on the Eastern Bible Dictionary and they say no he was dwelling majority on the eastward of Europe, which I was going into the landmark. But it's Proverbs chapter 22 and verses 28. Somebody will explain because the rain kind of real hard right now. But it says, remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Really remove the ancient landmarks with thy fathers. I said, that's it.
Yeah, it says,
Move on.
remove not the ancient landmarks which thy fathers have set.
That is
And that
it.
is something that, so like, you want to go ahead, brother?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that is something that Esau have did over the period of time, where he chased out these other nations, like particularly in Japheth, and now he being the modern day Gog and Magog dwelling in Russia, right? Even you even quoted earlier on in Joel the third chapter. You understand? These is things that Esau have did. He even did that to our people also. You understand? Come in and whitewash everything and say, all right, this is we taking on everybody else's identity, but don't want to take on the identity that is originally theirs. Make it go there, brother.
That's something. That's something fair again on that topic. Is Isaiah chapter 10 and verses 5. It says, O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. It says, and I will send him against an hypocritical nation, which is the nation of Israel. Right? Hypocrites to the Most High, because we said we would do, and then we didn't do. Right? We said that we would serve Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. We said that we would hearken. And then when the prophets came to us, we said, no, we ain't hearkening. That's what the Israelites said. You understand? So they were hypocrites to the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. And against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge. Same people. The Lord poured out his wrath upon us because we moved him to that wrath. As the scripture says, we were sold to the nations because we moved the Lord to wrath. Right? It says to take the spoil and to take the prey and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Right? It says, howbeit he meaneth not so, neither doeth his heart think so, but it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. So it was prophesied for these Assyrians here being mentioned as Esau, right? He coming up in the spirit and vibration of these Assyrians, modern day Assyrians. It's like Esau today is the modern day Babylonians. The Babylonians back then were Assyrians, right? Nebuchadnezzar and the ruling class people of Babylon, Assyrians, the descendants of Asher, right? Which is another Shemitic people, right? But Esau today, he is that modern day Assyrian, Babylonian, Egyptian. He's the one that the Lord is using to cut these nations off, even cut us off, as he just read it. He said, he sent him against us, and he ended up conquering our land, right? The other nations' land as well. And precisely the Lord is going to judge him for what he did or what he's doing to our land. You see, but Japheth is not that important in prophecy. There's only two nations that people were given the fatness of the earth and the dew from heaven above. There's only two nations that was given to. So rightly so, Esau under his period of blessing could conquer the world, right? Could conquer different people's lands because this is what we're gonna have the authority over in the times to come, as the scripture says in Obadiah, they of the south shall possess the mount of Edom. We're gonna take over their land. That's what the Lord is going to cause us to do, take over the lands that Esau had. So it's no longer going to belong to him. That which he had done to nations is going to be recompensed in his bosom, right?
I have
That's
Daniel
something.
chapter 7 for you.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Right?
Yeah. Slack.
Go ahead, you go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead and break it down.
That going into Edom, the Edomite rulership. Somebody can link up Revelation 13 and verses 2 because that goes hand in hand with what the brother just read in what you read, Daniel.
Yeah, that was Daniel 7.
Daniel 7.
Or link up for it in Daniel 8.
I
Daniel 8.
Revelation 13.
Well,
Yeah. Daniel 7 and Revelation 13, John and Daniel were seeing similar beats, almost the same thing. Because in John's time, there was a distinct focus on who? That red dragon. That's why chapter 12 talks about that red dragon before it talks about it as a beast. And you would notice that the boat had 7 heads and 10 horns. Why? Because it symbolized the same people, the same rulership, and it's going to begin with a particular beast, the same beast mentioned in Daniel 7. Go ahead, brother.
With the Revelation?
Yeah.
All right. There's Revelation chapter 13 and verses 2. It says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and
Was
his
like
feet.
on what? As I mentioned, I highlighted there that it's pertaining to a particular man's relative, red dragon, or worm. So that leopard in 7 is pertaining to Esau's relative when they began to rule, and they began to as Greek, right? Looking then even Alexander, the first ruler of Greece, like first Maccabees 1 tells us, he used to wear a leopard, right? Like a omen right there, right? Showing what the prophecies represent. I believe this is what the priests and they back then would have even showed it. Remember, the history tells us that Alexander, he was cast and killed as Antiochus and as
yeah, let me talk one and Salakia. Yeah, let me talk.
Remember, the scripture tells us that Alexander, well, history, tells us that Alexander the Great, he was not as harsh to the Israelites as Antiochus and his generals were, right? Because Alexander, he got a dream of meeting the high priest. That's written in you can find this in the works of Josephus, right? In the works of Josephus goes down into the history of Alexander the Great and his relation or his encounters with the Israelites after having a dream where he saw them arrayed in particular vesture, and then having them in person, they were arrayed in the same thing, and the Lord caused them to bow to them, right? And what scripture should come to mind there? You know, the Lord making the enemies at peace with thee. You understand? And this will even happen under Cyrus. Cyrus the Great, he sent out a decree to let Israel go back and rebuild. So that is it. So there's parts in history where the Lord showed us favor even whilst being under the nations. That shows you that the Lord's mercy endured forever up to the nation of Israel. Because we ended up in that state, as I read before, because of his wrath. Right? Because of the Lord's wrath. But remember, the king's heart is in the hands of the Lord. So despite Alexander was an Edomite king, the Lord had his heart under control. Yeah, go and conquer the known world, but you ease up these people here for me. That's my people. Right? That is not your role in prophecy is not to torture them, right? At this point, your role in prophecy is to focus on conquering the world in 12 years. I'll take you out, and then I'll set up generals who will fulfill the rest. And the priest and they would have showed him that, hey, use that leopard. They showed him who he was in prophecy. And this is what we're showing again today. We even showing the nations and the rulers that be, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, this is who you all are. You all are the Edomites, which they know, right? But the typical Edomites on the low level don't know. So we let the world know. We have to proclaim the truth according to the scriptures. And it's, as the scripture says, the truth that has been so long without fruit is now being declared. And that is where people who speak lies and the misinformations are in trouble. Right? So very soon they're going to clamp down on this type of information being spread. Even now, no surprise if here this lesson gets strike, channel get, because Esau has been on an all-out attack and frustration against this work. We've been seeing it because the things that we're bringing out is hitting the nail on the head. It goes back, everything that you're seeing before you has a biblical connection. Why it is throughout history we could find the so-called white race, a particular people oppressing the blacks, oppressing the native Indians, oppressing the Hispanics. Why throughout the histories we could find that? Because that goes back to an old hatred they had from the very beginning, the birthright that they lost all from. So they forged lies, 1917 Balfour Declaration. That is their forged birthright. Talking about they have right and passage to this holy land. And look what they're doing with
They use manifest destiny, and as Connor would have brought out, they would have removed the landmarks too.
Khan.
Push forward the agenda, the lies. Fulfilling
That's it.
the prophecy, they call the lands after themselves.
Khan. That's Psalms 49. Because they think that the inward thought, their houses shall continue forever. But the Lord said in Malachi 1:4, they will build, but I will throw down. So that's why we know too, it's not just America has to be hit with nukes. It has to be the places that Esau went and really built up himself. So that is different parts of Europe. He's going to get hit there too. In America mainly, and in our homeland. That's where they went and they lied and they entered and they built up themselves. So the Lord going and throw them down with some nukes. As the scripture says, fire and brimstone for the wicked, So we know how it's going to end. And we could tell you clearly today that there's a major thief in the earth who stole people's identities. So even while going back into the findings of these nations and who they are, it's a bit tedious. You understand? Because you had to go into the histories to see and to understand that this is what was being done. The forcing out of these people, right? And how they should originally look, because Japhet was no cursed nation in terms of lack of pigment. The Japhetic people didn't have leprosy. In history, the record of the Japhetic or the Edomite people, I should say, would that they came out red all over. Japhet came out like a dark-skinned man. Ham, Zondervan Bible Dictionary, progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes. Why was he dark? Because his parents were dark. And thus his brothers would also be dark-skinned. He just was of a deeper shade. Right? Being Ham, which Ham goes into the hot. Under that heat you could get really dark. So it's all symbolism, no man, woman, and the Lord has revealed these things unto us. So Japhet is those Polynesian people, Minoan people that were forced out of those regions by Esau, who today come up under the title of Europeans. At one point Greeks, as we went back into there with the leopards with the four wings as a fall, that goes into his four generals that came up after him. Ptolemy, Cassander, Lysimachus, and Seleucus, or Seleucus. All right, that's something.
I got a quick one for you too, Baba Kasha. Shalom.
Shalom.
Yeah, you can expound on it. There is Jeremiah 5 and verse 6. It says, wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them, and a wolf of the evening shall spoil them. A leopard shall watch over their cities. Every one that goeth out thence shall be torn in pieces, because their transgressions are many, and their backsliding are increased.
Read that again, Babakosha.
This is Jeremiah chapter 5 and verses 6. It says, Wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them, and a wolf of the evenings shall spoil them. A
Mm-hmm.
leopard shall watch over their cities. Every one that goeth out thence shall be torn in pieces, because their transgressions are many, and their backslidings are increased.
What did it say? Big Brother is watching. A leopard shall watch over their cities. And even those previous pieces that was mentioned, a lion and a wolf, those are titles that are linked with Esau. Like even if you go back to the Revelation 13 too, brother, it tells us that if you can read it again, it's all gonna connect there.
The Revelation.
Yeah, 15.
Alright, again, Matthew Revelation 13 and verse 2. It reads, it says, And the beast which, Revelation 13 and 2, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard,
Mm-hmm.
and his feet was the feet of a bear,
Yeah,
and
the
his
feet
mouth.
represent, right? The feet represent, and in the end, there's a nation of people that is likened to being a bear, right? That bear is going to have a major role in the end, in the feet. And that's who? Who that could be? Gog and Magog. We read it in Revelation 20 and verse 8. Go ahead.
It says, and his
You have
feet
them in
was the
Daniel,
feet
you
of
have
the.
them in Daniel too, right?
Can. Finish up,
This
Connor.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 5. And behold, another beast like to a bear, right? It raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it, the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. Now that bear go back into what the Medes and the Persians. The land they originally dwelt was up here. Saint Anthony, right? Assyria, Media, Parthia, around there, right? And up there, close to the Caspian Sea, would be known as what Russians today.
Ooh. And it's beautiful. You bring all that because, as you rightfully said, it represents both Medes and Persian, the Medo-Persian Empire. And
Mhm.
guess what? The Medo-Persian Empire was a combination of two different lines of people. That was a combination of Japhet and
Elam.
Elam.
Well, it's Elam,
Japhet,
but yeah.
Japhet and Elam united. And now Elam or Persia, right? Persia was once called, or what was called Persia is now called today Iran,
Can.
right? So they represent Persia. And now the Medes was linked with the Persians, who
Mm-hmm.
is linked with Iran today.
You have
One of the
Iran
main
and Russia. You have Iran and Russia.
Russia. So right there, we could see that Russia is the modern day Medes.
Medes. Daniel
Place
8.
Jap.
All right, Daniel 8 and verse 1. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in the
Ooh,
vision, and I was by the river Ulai.
yeah,
Then
you
I lift
lie.
up, right? I lift up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had two horns, and the two horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last,
Just like the
right?
bear.
Yeah,
It
and
lifted
that,
up.
that represents the Medes.
The higher came up last represents the Persians. They
Mhm,
remember when you read the Daniel 11,
mhm.
the Persians had a higher, more dominant through Cyrus. Cyrus the Great.
Oh, the kingdom. They talk about the opulence of the kingdom.
Yeah, they were actually out of the two, the Median Persian alliance. The
Mhm.
Persians actually rose up above them, and that switch ultimately took place when Cyrus came in the picture. And Cyrus's father is known as Astyages.
Oh,
Asti,
alright.
if you go back to
Daniel
Bell and the
11.
Bell and the Dragon, chapter 1 and verses 1. Somebody could read that?
I have you.
I will tell you, know.
Alright, go ahead.
Go ahead.
1-on-1.
Yeah.
It says, and King Astyages
Astyages.
was gathered to his fathers, and Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom, and Daniel conversed with the king and was honored above all his friends.
Right. So it says Salakia.
Go ahead.
It said Astyages, he died, and Cyrus the Persian took over or took the kingdom, right? Now, Astyages was the grandfather of Cyrus. And guess what? He was a Mede, right?
Okay.
He was a Mede. So how did this Mede end up with a Persian grandson? He had a dream. The Lord put a dream in his spirit. This is when you check the history. He had a dream, and the dream was that out of his daughter would come forth a seed that would ultimately take over his kingdom. He was given a prophetic dream. He saw it. And then what he did was his first plan that he conspired with was to get her a husband
From
that would
Elam.
be a humble nature. And he thought of a Persian by the name of Cyaxares II. Right? So he gave his daughter over to Cyaxares II, and Cyaxares II impregnated her, and he brought forth Cyrus. But here what happened? He got a second dream. Astyages got a second dream, and in that second dream, he dreamed that the child still took over the kingdom. So what did his next move?
To kill everybody.
To try to kill that child. Right? So he tried to kill the child now. He sent one of his generals, I forgot his name, Apagus or something like that. He sent him to kill the child. But Apagus, or whatever his name was, through the spirit, because the Lord is now bringing up Cyrus for a purpose. Cyrus, mine anointed, just like Yahushua had a purpose, so they couldn't kill him when they conspired too. So the same thing with Cyrus, they couldn't kill him. So a spirit came on him where he said, "Nah, I can't kill a royal seed. How could be it far from me to kill a royal seed?" So he decided to take the child from
The mother.
Cyrus, the modern day, which is Cyaxares II, his father, right? I believe was Mandane, yeah, and give the child unto a shepherd's family, which just had a stillborn child. So he's made a switcheroo. So he presented that stillborn child as the Cyrus. But then as time progressed, the child grew, and news came that this is Cyrus. He's of the royal line. And what the King Astyages did in response was basically cook the general's son and fed it to him.
Shit.
You know? And then Cyrus, as we read in the different accounts, Cyrus became great, started conquering the earth, right? Starting to defeat the Assyrians, the Babylonians.
I wonder
When it
if
is
that's where they get the Prince of Persia from.
gone, when you're reading it was Daniel the fifth when they had the banquet with what's his name, Belshazzar.
Khan.
When it talks about
5 and 30.
Belshazzar,
Yeah, Khan. 5. We want to
right?
get 5 and 30, 30, 31 down to the end there.
Yeah, the last couple verses. This is when they took over Babylon.
All right, this Daniel chapter 5. I just want to get some light here. Daniel chapter 5, and I'm gonna start at verse 25. And this is a writing that was written many tekel your Pharisee. It says, this is the interpretation of the thing. Many, God had numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balance and found wanting. Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet and put a chain of gold about his neck and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. In the
Right. Why
night,
the third ruler is because Belshazzar was not the first ruler. So he
Okay.
had power right after Belshazzar, but um Belshazzar was underneath his father Nabonidus. He was like the regent setter because his father was absent, right? So he
Viceroy.
was
Yeah, fine.
right. So that's why Daniel came in and said, third. Go ahead.
It says I can only buy that. In the night Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. 32,
No,
three score,
and
sorry, 62. 62
can
years.
anyone go into the word took?
Took. All right,
Because
fine.
he took the kingdom, right? Which really and truly, he received the kingdom because Cyrus had already risen up, right? So it wasn't a me that took Babylon, it was actually a Persian, Cyrus. It was under his charge, and he gave it to his same grandfather to rule over. So it's like the relation after having been attempted to be put to death, after the attempts on his life, he
Mm-hmm.
still came out and gave part of the rulership unto the Medes, keeping their life,
The
right?
word took is kibal, which means to receive.
It means the what?
To receive or take. Receive.
To to receive. It's more so receive. He received it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why when you read the Bell and Dragon, it tells that he took it back. When Astyages died, he just take it back.
Mm-hmm.
Because I gave it to him.
Mm.
Right? So um these different nations had the specific role in prophecy, right? So we could clearly see where it says in the scriptures where Japheth shall be enlarged, and they will dwell in the tents of Shem. Japheth dwelling in the tents of Shem represents how they had an alliance in history with Elam. But Elam is a Shemite nation. I believe that was the first son of Shem, Elam,
Yeah.
right?
Elam, then Asher, the Assyrians. Elam is the East Indians, then Aram, the Syrians, then Moab, the Chinese, Ammon, the
Uh,
Japanese, Ishmael, the Arabs, and then Edom, the so-called white one, and then Israel, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Slovakia.
Can. I know you see Esau dwelling in the tents of Japheth and Tif.
Come
Start to fulfill prophecy because Japheth does not. You see, we know for sure there's not Japheth in rulership. The Japhetic people got forced out, and they got basically that from what Esau did to them. That is, they basically get packed up. There's no prophecy, major prophecy in the last days concerning Japheth. What you have to understand too is that out of these 18 nations, right, there is only two major stars, right, which they shouldn't be even called stars. But what I'm saying is they are light on the left hand side, right? They are the opposition in the whole story. So like just like Joker would get some light
Yeah.
or some
Penguin or what is it? Two Face.
yeah,
Yeah.
and these different villains would have a certain shine in the
Cameo.
movie.
Yeah, they'll get
Yeah,
little cameos. The Riddler might come in there for 2 minutes. This week it will be about the Riddler. But
yeah.
the main star is Batman and Lex Luthor. Something like that.
A Superman and Lex Luthor,
Sorry, Superman and Lex Luthor. It's Batman and whom? Well, it's Batman and Joker.
Batman and Joker, and then they have the rest of pawns. You know the extras. It's called like the extras in the movie.
Can.
That is Japheth make up the little extras, right? 6 nations coming out of them,
Oh, yeah.
and 8 out of Shem and 4 out of Ham.
Four to a ham. Yeah. Yeah.
So the nations are identified.
Can. Well, I think we might have to break it up. We could end it there for now.
Sent to here.
Yeah. All right, then okay, let's come back and do Ham and Shem on other occasions. All right, so
Yeah,
that we pray it was edifying. All praises unto Yahweh Bashim and Oshai Bashim Kakodash. Double on the South Apostles and Elders are Great Millstone. Salutations to the elect. Shalom.
Shalom, Abakariam.
Shalom.
Shalom, Abakariam.